All right, as Washington lawmakers negotiate new gun legislation, there was a string of violent shootings over the holiday weekend. In Chicago, police say 3 are dead and at least 31 others injured in several shootings since Friday. In D.C., a 15-year-old boy was killed, and 3 people, including a D.C. police officer, were shot after a fight broke out during a music event yesterday. In South Carolina, police are investigating after 2 men were shot and killed outside of a nightclub. And on Saturday in San Antonio, at least 2 people were killed and 5 others injured from a drive-by shooting at a family barbecue. Police say a vehicle drove by and unloaded about 20 to 30 rounds. That is life in America. Joining us now, former senior operations officer with the CIA, Mark Polymeropoulos. Good to have you on board. And in your piece, Mark, for the Washington Examiner, you talk about how you returned to the Philadelphia Police Department and the growing strains of service that you observed. You write in part this: the burnout of police officers in Philly is a major problem that has no end in sight. The force is several hundred officers under strength, and more officers leave the force each week. The majority of Philly PD officers are in their 20s, and many grew up in the city. Yet they deal with violence and lawlessness on a daily basis and feel a lack of support from city leaders. Many suffer from low morale, depression, anger issues, and a lack of sleep, all with no organized plan to help. But they suit up each day. It's not normal to witness such horrors every day, not for a CIA officer or a Special Operations Forces operator with multiple war zone deployments. It's time to do more to help our greatest helpers. It's the least we can do for those who do the toughest job in America. And Reverend Al, I'll let you take it to Mark, but this is really the other side of the issue that you're so forceful and important on, which is, of course, police brutality and how the police are seen in the community and how they treat people. At the same time, we need the police. We need good cops, and they need our support.
Absolutely. And Mark, one of the things in reading your column that comes to me is that there's sort of be a misplaced theory that people in the community, and we've had a lot of violence right there in Philadelphia, and I have a chapter of National Action Network there, Paula Peoples and others, that talk about just like we want to see police on the side of people in the community when there's a police man that or woman that breaks the law, the police want to know that they're there fighting for the community, that the community's on their side, and that it's not that we have different foes that we're fighting. It's the same foe. We want to see people not shot by cops or robbers. And I think your piece brings that out, that it's very depressing that I'm a good cop. I'm not beating up somebody wrong. I'm not shooting somebody, and I'm fighting the bad guys, and the people I'm fighting for despise me.
Well, that's right. You know, last September, I went for the first time at the invitation of Captain Matt Gillespie, who at the time was the 18th District Commander. And I went there to talk just about leadership training, how to lead in crisis situations. I wrote a book on it, and so Matt thought it would be a good idea for me to talk to the cops under his command. This time I went back to talk about something a little different. I took a friend of mine, Rob Lively, who's a veteran of the Army Special Operations, 1,000 combat deployments. But we went there to talk about wellness and resiliency because the Philly cops really feel like it's a profession under siege. And look, this is an apolitical statement we're making. The mental and physical health of a police officer is something we all want to, certainly promote. So we went just on a grassroots level to talk about, how does a cop suit up every day? What are the things they can control, such as physical fitness and sleep hydration. I mean, even exercise. What can you do every day so you have that kind of capacity to act like a good cop? And the response to our visit was tremendous. And I think this is something that everyone can agree on. And what we need to do is have our nation's police forces, and the political powers that be to fund such wellness and resiliency training. It's really important.
Mark, talk about how difficult it is for them to go out, though, every day. I'm reminded of soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines who fought in Vietnam, and they'd come home and they'd be spit on in airports. Obviously, made service so much harder. Of course, you served post 9/11, when chances are very good. When troops walk through the airports, they'd be applauded. People would slap them on the back to thank them for everything they were doing to protect our country. Seems to me the cops right now have the raw end of the bargain. They're the good cops are the guys that are fighting, the women who were fighting in Vietnam, doing what the country asked them to do and facing contempt. So how do we turn that around? And I ask that question not to choose sides. I ask that question because, as Rev and I always talk about, we want people in every community to be safe. And right now, if the cops aren't fully engaged, if the cops don't have support of the community, and the community doesn't have the support of the cops, things keep going sideways, and more people are killed by gun violence every week.
Well, that's right. In Philadelphia, their murder rate's going to hit 500 again this year. That's the same as last year. Carjackings are going to be up to about, 1,400, only several hundred a couple years ago. The conviction rate for gun offenses is as low as 32%. So all this matters to the police officers. And, one of the interesting things that I did on the trip is what Rob and I did on the trip is we would stop, we'd go on a ride along. But this is unscripted. We'd stop, and just talk to cops on the beat. We stopped in Kensington, which is essentially has open air drug markets. And talking to a young police officer there was extraordinary. Most importantly, he was young and he really cared about the community. There was no derision towards the people who were really struggling there. He wanted to help them. And as we left, what I thought of him was, what happens after 4 or 5 months of every day going and seeing this? And it reminded me of some of the things that myself and others in the special operations and intelligence community have felt over the last 20 years about mental and physical health challenges. And so we have to really take care of our cops. It's not good if it's a profession under siege. And let me just say one more thing. I have friends in multiple police departments all over the country. When they see things such as what happened in Uvalde, they were not happy with this at all. They thought the police officers must respond. There are a ton of good cops out there, and I think we really have to support them. But it comes down to things like wellness and resiliency training, which is, to make sure that they have the tools to get out in the street every day, which I think, they do one of the toughest jobs in America. It reminds me of what I did for many years. But I tell you one thing, it's pretty amazing to see what they go through. And I think they deserve our support. We need police reform. We also have to support our cops on the streets.